welcome to the video notes for lesson 1-3, and this begins on page 15 from your notes packet. This lesson is expressing decimals as fractions. Now, I know we actually have already seen and talked about this a little bit in this unit, but today's lesson is going to deal with something a little more complicated than just simply turning regular decimals into fractions, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So that is the learning target, transforming a decimal into a fraction form. And our key concept, a rational number, remember, is a number that can be written in the form of a over b, where a and b are integers and b is not equal to 0. Remember, we can't have 0 at the bottom of a fraction, and we can't divide by 0. A terminating decimal is a decimal expansion that terminates in zeros, or basically it's a decimal or number that ends. And then a repeating decimal is a decimal expansion that repeats the same digit or block of digits without end. A bar indicates the repeating digit or block of digits. Alright, so converting a fraction to a decimal, you'll see below, is set up for us where we would do the division, long division, if you will. So 8 can't go into 3. So we're going to pretend we know that there's a decimal here. I'm actually going to put it above so that we can see it, and put a 0. Now, 8 goes into 3 0 times. 8 can go into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. You subtract. If you don't get a 0, 0, you keep going. So 30 minus 24 is 6. So we'll add another 0, bring it down. How many times does 8 go into 60? Well, that's 7. 56. Subtract again. We got a 4 this time. Add on another 0, bring it down. Okay, so nothing's repeating so far, and we haven't gotten a 0, so we keep going. 8 times 5 is 40. And now when we subtract, we get 0. So there's no sense in bringing down another 0. If you want, you could, but 8 goes into 0 0 times, so this would end in a 0. So our answer is 0.7375. Sorry. 375. Okay, now we're going to deal with a repeating decimal. So we have 1/6. So that's we put the 1 on the inside and 6 on the outside, 1 divided by 6. 6 can't go into 1, so we add on a 0, put our decimal up here. We'll put a 0 here because that's how many times 6 goes into 1. 6 goes into 10 one time. Subtract, and you get 4. Add on a 0, bring it down. 6 goes into 40 6 times. That's 36. Minus, you get 4, add on another 0, bring it down, and look what happens. 36, and it's continuing. So no matter how many times we do this, we're always going to end up getting 40, and 6 goes into 46 times, so we've got that repeating 6. So 0.1, now the 1 doesn't repeat, but the 6 does. Now some of you may have known 1/6 is a repeating decimal when you convert it. Others may not. So sometimes if you don't recognize it, you have to go through the trouble of dividing to find out. Now, what's this all mean? Well, let's go to the next page. So the big idea for this lesson is converting decimals to fractions. So far we went the opposite. That was just so you could see what they look like. Now we are actually going to do the converting. So now when I look at these types, these are terminating decimals, so they're a little bit easier. All you need to do for terminating decimals is use place value. So the 3 is in the 10th place. So since the 3 is in the 10th place, we're going to divide by 10. Now, what you do is you put a 3, don't worry about the decimal, over 10. We could have put the 0 in the front, but 0, 3 is the same as just 3. Now, make sure that it can't simplify, because if it can simplify, then you need to go one step further. In math, make sure you ask me how to use your calculator for simplifying, and I will show you. The next example, we are in the hundredths place. Hundredths. So we're going to put 018, or just 18, over 100. Now, since that can be simplified, you find a common factor, and it's 2, and you get 9 over 50. 125 thousandths. So we're going to put that 125 over 1,000. Now that can be simplified, so I'm going to let you finish that one on your own and do the next one on your own. Now, below that, we have some more examples. 14.5. Now, some of you might know this is going to be 14.5. If you didn't know that, you could say, well, this is, again, it's in the 10th place. So, I put 145 over 10. And then, when you simplify it, you get 14 and 5, or turn it into a mixed number. And then that is what it will simplify to. 2.03, that's 2 300ths. This is hundredths. So, I'm going to put 203 over 100. And what does that simplify to? 2 300ths. The next one, 10.6, or 10 6/10. 106 over 10 equals, I'm going to let you finish this one. And try this next one on your own. It's a bit of a challenge. If you have a hard time with it, that's okay. We'll talk about it in math. Okay, now at the bottom we've got some repeating. Now, some of you may or may not know these. 0.6 repeating is actually 2/3. Now, we just talked about how you get 1.1 and then a repeating 6. This is going to be 5 1/6, and then this last one is going to be 34 7/9. Now, how did I do that? Well, I am a master of fractions, and I know what some of my common repeating decimals are. You may not be. So, if you don't know how to do this, we need a strategy. And I am going to show you one on the next page. Need a strategy. I hope I spelled that right. We're going to use algebra to help us figure this out. So, on page 17, we'll skip over some of these. These ones at the top are actually a bit of a challenge. So we'll actually do those in math together. Let's do this one here, 0.3 repeating. Now some of you may know already that that's 1/3, but let's show how you get 1/3. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use algebra. So I'm going to let this equal n. N equals 0.3 repeating. Now, since the 3, the first digit repeating, is in the 10th place, I'm going to multiply by 10. So I get 10n equals, now if I multiply n by 10, I have to multiply this by 10. So 0.3 repeating times 10 is 3.3 with a repeating decimal. Now, I want to get rid of this repeating decimal. N is equal to that repeating decimal, so I'm going to subtract N from both sides. Well, on one side, I'm going to write it as N. On the other side, I'm going to write it as 0.3 repeating. Because remember, these are basically equal, right? Now, what's 10N minus N? It's 9N. What's 3.3 repeating minus 0.3 repeating? Well, all these 3's cancel each other out. So we're left with 3 minus 0, or just 3. Now, how do I get N by itself? Divide both sides by 9. And what you get is N equals 3 over 9, or 1/3. Ta-da! So that's the algebra way of doing this. Here's what we're going to do. This one is tricky, so I don't want you to do this on your own. I'm going to change this one below, the 0.61 with the 1 repeating, change that to 0.5 repeating, and I want you to try that on your own using the strategy I just did. So we're going to let N equal 0.5 repeating. Then the first step is to multiply, since the 5 is in the 10th place, multiply both sides by 10, and you get 10N equals 5.5 repeating. Now I want you to finish this on your own. You're going to subtract something from both sides, and, well, you'll see how it works out. All right? If you had any trouble with anything that we did in this video, go back and rewatch it. Good luck, and we'll see you in math.